the cold-hearted killer who murdered his pregnant wife and 2 daughters, the father of slain Shanann Watts gave an emotional statement venting his anger and grief.
You heartless monster. You have no heart or feelings or love. Prison is too good for you. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul.
Shanann's mother reminded Watts of a heartbreaking video his daughter Bella recorded.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong.
We loved you like a son. We trusted you. Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you.
Even his own mother expressed horror at Watts' crimes.
There is a man sitting in a cell in Wisconsin right now. He has a routine. He wakes up. He mops floors. He reads scripture. He writes letters to women who find him attractive. And according to everyone who has seen those letters, he is not sorry. Not in any way that reaches what he actually did. What is coming out of that prison cell in April 2026 is so calculated, so psychologically revealing, and so deeply disturbing that once you hear it, you will never see this case the same way again. Stay with me until the end. Because I made a promise at the start of this video. By the time we are done, you will understand something about Christopher Watts that no other update has said out loud yet. If you clicked on this video, you already know what he did. You have seen the documentary. You have seen the interrogation footage. You know about Shanann. You know about Bella. You know about Celeste. You know about Nichol, who never took his first breath. This video is not about August 2018. This video is about everything that came after. What this man has become. What he is doing right now inside that cell. What every word coming out of it reveals about the kind of person who could do what he did, and then wake up the next morning and keep on living. This is the April 2026 prison update on Christopher Watts, and there are details in here that will stop you cold. Subscribe to Unresolved Years Mysteries right now if you want to follow coverage like this. Turn on notifications. Hit the like button. We go deeper than the headline. Now let's get into it. Christopher Watts is currently housed at Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin. He has been there since December 2018, transferred out of Colorado less than a month after sentencing, under what is called the Interstate Corrections Compact. The reason for the transfer was documented. His safety. His notoriety in Colorado made him an immediate target from other inmates who knew exactly who he was, and reportedly from corrections officers who despised what he had done. Colorado shipped him out of the state he destroyed, into a maximum security facility in Wisconsin, where he has remained ever since. Now, Dodge Correctional Institution is not just any prison. This building has history. It was formerly the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. Serial killer Ed Gein, the man whose crimes gave birth to some of the most iconic horror films ever made, including Psycho and The Silence of the Lambs, was once housed inside that same building. And if you follow true crime closely, Stephen Avery of Making a Murderer is serving life just across the street at Waupun Correctional Institution. That is the neighborhood Christopher Watts calls home. He is 40 years old. He is serving 5 life sentences with no possibility of parole, on 9 total charges, 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a dead body. He will die inside that building. Most of us, when we picture someone serving life for what Christopher Watts did, imagine a certain kind of existence. We picture guilt. We picture collapse. We picture a person consumed by the weight of what they chose to do. What the letters coming out of Dodge in 2025 and into 2026 reveal is something very different. Watts lives in protective custody. That is not a minor detail. Protective custody means he cannot be placed in general population. He cannot move freely. He cannot mix with other inmates. The reason, as confirmed by sources and prison officials, is straightforward. He would not survive it. His daily routine: he works as a custodian. He mops floors and cleans common areas. He exercises. He attends Bible study. He writes letters. Since arriving at Dodge, he has received 2 formal conduct violations. One in 2020 for unauthorized forms of communication and unauthorized transfer of property. One in 2021 for disobeying orders and possession of contraband. Neither resulted in major disciplinary action, but they tell you something. The compliance, the mopping, the Bible study, the quiet routine, that is not the complete picture. There have been moments where his instinct to operate outside the boundaries placed on him surfaced. And then there is this detail, confirmed in 2019, and never successfully challenged since. Christopher Watts kept photographs of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste inside his cell. When this became public, over 20,000 people signed a petition demanding that prison officials remove those photographs. The outrage was immediate. The idea that this man could look at the faces of the people he murdered every single day felt like a violation on top of a violation. The petition failed. The Department of Corrections confirmed there was no legal basis for removing personal photographs from an inmate's cell. The photos stayed. He still looks at their faces. What he feels when he does, that is the question at the center of everything that follows. Let's talk about the letters. Because this is where the story of Christopher Watts in 2026 stops being a straightforward prison update and starts revealing something far more disturbing about who this man actually is. Since arriving at Dodge, Watts has received a volume of mail that is extraordinary for any inmate. And it arrives in two very distinct categories: death threats and love letters. In the same mailbox, Watts himself confirmed to investigators that he has received both threatening correspondence from people who want him dead and photographs of women in bikinis, all arriving through standard prison mail. He stated he only responded to people he already knew personally before his incarceration. But sources who have tracked his correspondence tell a different story. A source speaking to People magazine was direct. They sent him photographs. He writes back, "There are women, a significant number, who find him attractive, who believe he is misunderstood, who initiate contact through prison pen pal platforms that facilitate this kind of correspondence regardless of what an inmate has done." And the source added something that is one of the most quietly devastating observations in this entire case. He has nothing else to do, so he feeds his ego that way. Inside Dodge, away from the letter writers and the arriving envelopes, he is despised. He is not popular. He cannot walk freely. He is protected from people who would hurt him if they could reach him. The correspondence is not incidental. For a man of Christopher Watts's psychological makeup, it is essential. It is the one arena left where he can still perform the version of himself that draws positive attention. He was always a man who conducted an entire secret affair while presenting as a devoted husband and father. The performance of being desired, of being chosen, was always central to how he functions. Prison did not remove that need. It just changed the audience. Before we get into what he has actually been writing, subscribe to Unresolved Years Mysteries right now. Hit that like button. Turn on notifications. This channel takes cases like this seriously and covers them with the depth they deserve. Every subscriber makes that possible. Now let's get into the letters themselves. Among the many women who have written to Christopher Watts during his incarceration, one came forward publicly with correspondence that has genuinely shocked people who follow this case. Her name is Deborah. She first reached out to Watts in 2022, 4 years into his sentence. Over the following years, they exchanged letters regularly. He told her about his life in prison. He told her about his faith. He presented himself as a man who had been broken down and rebuilt by God. A changed man, a transformed man, a man whose suffering had given him a new relationship with Scripture and with Christ. Deborah, by her own account, was drawn into the version of himself he was offering. Then, in late 2025, what ended their correspondence? It was not another woman. It was not prison intervention. He told her that God had decided they could not be together. He wrote in his own words that he believed in a different time he would have been able to be with her, but that God had other plans for his life. A man serving 5 consecutive life sentences with no parole, no appeals horizon, no legal mechanism that removes him from that building, was romantically letting down a pen pal by telling her it simply was not God's will for them to be together. Does that sentence tell you everything you need to know about what is happening inside that cell? But the letters Deborah received before that farewell are something else entirely. In October 2025, Christopher Watts wrote to Deborah and articulated, clearly and without apparent irony, his understanding of why God had placed him inside Dodge Correctional Institution. He wrote that God had a plan for him, that God wanted him in prison, that this was God's will, in the same way it was God's will for Jesus to die for the sins of the world. Let me say that again so it lands properly. A man who strangled his pregnant wife, who drove his daughters to an oil field while they were still alive in the back seat of his truck, who forced the bodies of 2 toddlers into crude oil tanks with openings so narrow that investigators found scratch marks on the metal and a tuft of blonde hair caught at the edge. That man is comparing his prison sentence to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And he did not stop there. In further letters, he wrote that while he would never fully understand what Christ went through, his own trials had given him a glimpse of it, a glimpse of the crucifixion. He is the one who suffers. He is the one whose pain carries spiritual weight. This is not a man who has found genuine faith. Genuine faith, real, transformative, honest faith, produces humility. It produces a reckoning with what you have actually done. It produces grief that faces outward toward the people you harmed, not inward toward your own experience of consequence. What Christopher Watts has found in religion is not faith. It is architecture. He has built a structure that holds him at the center, not as a murderer serving a just sentence, but as a man chosen by God to endure something profound, something that connects him to Christ. And the women receiving those letters are being invited into that architecture, into the story where Christopher Watts is the figure whose suffering matters most. It is, in every meaningful sense, the same story he told Shanann for years. If you accept the framework Christopher Watts has constructed, that God placed him in prison as part of a divine plan, a natural question follows. Why did it happen at all? Watts has an answer for that too. In letters and phone calls disclosed publicly by author Cherlynn Cadle, who corresponded extensively with Watts, he told her he was under demon possession the night of the murders. That something supernatural, something outside himself, had acted through him. That he was not fully present, not fully himself. Think carefully about what this claim accomplishes. It does not deny that something terrible happened. It cannot. He confessed. The evidence is part of the permanent public record. What it does instead is remove his agency entirely. In this version of events, Christopher Watts is not a man who, by his own subsequent written confession, had been thinking about killing his family for weeks, who searched online for how long bodies last in oil while his wife was on a business trip, who went into his daughter's rooms the night before and attempted to harm them while they slept, who loaded Shanann's body and his 2 children into his truck, his daughters still alive in the back seat, before driving 45 miles to a remote oil field. None of that deliberate, calculated, documented reality appears in the demon possession narrative. The demon did it. He was merely a vessel, and now he sits here, a man acted upon by dark forces, growing closer to God. Cherlynn Cadle herself, who spent more time corresponding with Watts than almost anyone outside his family, has stated plainly that she believes his religious conversion is a performance, a strategy designed to appear reformed, not the real thing. And it connects directly to the next letter. If a demon caused the murders, then surely no human being is to blame. And yet, there is one specific human being Christopher Watts cannot resist holding responsible. In a letter obtained by the Daily Mail, Watts wrote about his former mistress, Nichol Kessinger. He opened, as he often does, by stating that he takes full responsibility for what happened. And then, in the very same letter, he called Kessinger a harlot, a Jezebel, a wicked woman who led him astray with sweet words of destruction. He wrote that he had been misled by her, that he was weak and let her cloud his morals and his judgment, that he would leave her fate, her justice, entirely to God. Let me be absolutely clear about something. Nichol Kessinger was never implicated in the murders, not by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, not by the FBI, not by any investigative body that examined this case from any angle. She was a woman Watts chose to have an affair with. When the murders became public, she came forward. She cooperated completely with law enforcement. She answered every question investigators asked. She did not plan anything. She did not participate in anything. She did not know what he had done until the rest of the world found out. In fact, it was Kessinger's unease with his calm reaction to his family's disappearance that contributed to investigators focusing on him more closely. And yet, in the theology Christopher Watts has built inside that cell, she is Jezebel, the biblical figure of seduction and corruption. The wicked woman whose influence on a man of faith led to catastrophe. He takes full responsibility, and she is a harlot who led him astray. He was possessed by a demon, and he was also misled by a Jezebel. These two explanations exist simultaneously in his letters, without any apparent awareness of their contradiction. Because for Christopher Watts, internal consistency has never been the point. The point is, whatever narrative, in any given moment, allows him to remain sympathetic, both to himself and to whoever is reading. And now, a detail in this update that genuinely stopped me. Cherlyn Cadle, who visited Watts in prison multiple times and corresponded with him for years, revealed publicly that Watts told her directly he intends to leave prison someday. And then he made a request that left her speechless. Knowing that Cadle had a granddaughter the same age as Celeste, he asked her, during one of their phone calls, whether she would allow him to watch her granddaughter if he was ever out of prison. Cadle's response was immediate. There was no world in which that would ever happen. Watts replied, "People will realize that I will never do anything like this again." Let that sit for a moment. A man convicted of murdering 2 toddlers is making future child care requests. A man with 5 consecutive life sentences and no possibility of parole is operating as if release is part of his expected future. Experts who have studied his communication patterns consistently describe this as deeply narcissistic thinking. The belief that the rules, legal, moral, institutional, do not fully and permanently apply to him. That belief did not enter prison with him. That belief is him. We are nearly at the end of this update. If this level of coverage, the psychology, the letters, the patterns, is what you come to this channel for, subscribe to Unresolved Years Mysteries right now. Turn on notifications. Leave a comment with what hit you hardest in this video. I read every single one. Now let's finish this. In 2025, a video went massively viral on TikTok claiming that Christopher Watts had been attacked inside prison and might be dead. The video spread with extraordinary speed. The comments flooded in, reactions ranging from barely concealed relief to open statements celebrating what the video claimed had happened. That response was raw and real and deeply human. People who have carried Shanann and Bella and Celeste and Nichol in some part of their minds since 2018, responding with the kind of emotional release that a case like this rarely provides through official channels. The video was confirmed to be fabricated, stitched together from footage filmed at 3 entirely different prison facilities. None of it clearly showed Watts. Dodge Correctional confirmed directly he had not been attacked. He was alive and well. But I want to stay with the response to that video for a moment. The speed and intensity of the public reaction tells you something important about how this case still lives in people 7.5 years later. There is a particular kind of unresolved feeling that attaches itself to cases like this. A sense that justice, the legal kind, the kind delivered through courts and sentences, cannot actually reach what happened. That no sentence long enough, no cell small enough, fully addresses what was taken. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, Nichol. 4 people gone in a single night. No verdict restores that. And buried in the thousands of comments underneath that viral video was a single remark that has stayed with me. Someone wrote simply, "I've been to Dodge. I've actually seen him walking down the hallway once. Nothing more. No anger. No drama. Just the quiet, factual confirmation. He is there. He is real. He walks down hallways. He is alive. And they are not." I want to pull back and look at the full picture. Because the most valuable thing this update can do is not simply catalog the shocking things Christopher Watts has been saying from inside that cell. It is to help you understand what those things reveal, collectively, about who this man is. Taken individually, each element of his current behavior might seem explainable in isolation. The Jesus comparison, perhaps religion without wisdom. The demon possession, perhaps psychological fragmentation. The Jezebel accusation, perhaps bitterness. The belief he will leave prison, perhaps denial. But take them together, look at the pattern. Every single narrative Christopher Watts has constructed since entering Dodge follows the same structural logic. He is always acted upon, never the actor. A demon acted through him. A Jezebel acted upon him. God is acting for him. In every version, he is the object. Something else is the subject. This is not what genuine accountability looks like. Genuine accountability is uncomfortable, unadorned, and directed outward, toward the people harmed, not inward toward the self. What Christopher Watts is producing in those letters is the same psychology that allowed him to plan those murders while tucking his daughters into bed. The same architecture that let him stand in front of cameras the morning after and perform the worried father. The same fundamental inability to inhabit the reality of what he has done to other people, because other people, at the level that truly matters, have never fully registered for him the way he registers for himself. He is not a new creature in Christ. He is the same person, in a smaller room, with a different audience. And the women writing to him are receiving the same experience Shanann received. A man extraordinarily capable of making someone feel seen, chosen, and special, for exactly as long as it serves his purposes. The performance did not end with the sentence. It found new material. I want to end this video not with Christopher Watts, because this case was never his story. Just weeks ago, in March 2026, Shanann's father, Frank Rizuchek, sat down for a new Fox Nation documentary. He said he had never seen so much evil in this world. He was not talking about August 2018. He was talking about the years of online harassment that have followed his family since the conviction. The conspiracy theories that recast Shanann as somehow responsible for her own murder. The cruelty directed at a family who lost a daughter, 2 granddaughters, and an unborn grandson in a single night, and then had to spend nearly a decade defending the memory of the people they loved. Nearly 8 years later, Frank Rizuchek is still sitting in front of cameras, still defending Shanann, still telling the world that the hate needs to stop, while the man who made all of it necessary is in Wisconsin comparing himself to Jesus, blaming a Jezebel, telling pen pals God has plans for his life, and asking about watching other people's grandchildren. Shanann was 34 years old. Bella was 4. Celeste was 3. Nichol never took his first breath. I made a promise at the start of this video. I said that by the end, you would understand something about Christopher Watts that no other update has said out loud yet. Here it is. The reason this case refuses to leave us, the reason you are watching videos about it in 2026, is not because of what he did. It is because of what he has not done since. Every letter, every religious claim, every comparison to Christ, every demon, every Jezebel, every conversation about leaving prison, every request to watch a child, all of it is proof, continuous, ongoing, documented proof, that the person capable of doing what he did in August 2018 is still entirely intact. Nothing changed, nothing broke, nothing was rebuilt. He is the same, and that, more than the crime itself, more than the sentence, more than any single detail in this update, is the most disturbing truth in this entire case. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. This is not easy content to sit with. But Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nichol deserve to have their story told accurately. And the people who followed this case deserve to understand what is actually happening. Not just the headlines. Drop a comment and tell me what hit you hardest in this update. The crucifixion comparison, the demon possession claim, the Jezebel letter, or the conversation about watching someone else's grandchild. Subscribe to Unresolved Years Mysteries if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one. I'm Marcus Webb. Thank you for watching.